there will be soon enough. I am Jim Freund, and with me is critic Dan Persons. I uh, own and operate Hour of the Wolf Productions, in fact. And, uh, okay, just reading operating system messages that I shouldn't have to read. At any rate, weekly on the radio show Hour of the Wolf, Dan Persons does reviews. If it's not a preemption week, usually I'm preempted 1 out of 4 weeks for fundraising, which is the way WBAI does things nowadays. Instead of having nonstop, endless drives, we have many preemptions of individual shows. And I worked out a nifty thing with our program director, Linda Perry, where normally this last Saturday, I would have been preempted, but I have a 90-minute interview with Frank Herbert. Now, that's pretty rare. You can all look around and see articles and stuff. You're not going to see too many in-depth interviews with Frank Herbert. You'll have people talking about him, but I had his actual voice. So since Hour of the Wolf is now once again an hour, not once again, it's the first time the show's only ever been only 1 hour, I broke it up into 2 parts. And in the latter part, our official critic, Dan Persons, who looks like that.
That's me.
Did his review of Dune, which is going away for now. And we were able to get all of the Frank Herbert interview in Dan's review, but I wanted to do an extended talk about this movie and previous versions of Dune with Dan, and we would have had 8 minutes. And I wanted to try to raise some money. I did pitch. I don't know if we actually raised money or not, but we tried.
It's all about the Benjamins, dude.
There you go. So, is there anybody named Benjamin? And anyway, so I thought that I would start by enumerating the versions of Dune that I have encountered. And of course, okay, well, let's give a little background. Before there was a first version of Dune, there was a non-version, and that was to have been done by Alejandro Jodorowsky. And the story came out in Analog magazine, very first issue of Analog. Before that, it was Astounding, and was serialized over 3 issues. It came out as a novel. That was 1963. It came out as a novel in 1965, and it became a cult sensation on college campuses almost immediately, at the same time as The Left Hand of Darkness, Lord of the Rings, and Stranger in a Strange Land, which is actually an earlier book, but people were into Heinlein. And an interesting thing about the H writers there, Heinlein and Herbert, is that they were being taken in by a third H, the hippies. Thought that this was all for them. It's like, far out, man. I wouldn't say either. Well, Frank Herbert was certainly open to working with thoughtful people of almost any kind. Heinlein, not so much. He was a preacher. And so you now have this cult item, and almost immediately starting in about 1965. Jodorowsky, who was in the process of making his two big cult movies, being El Topo and
Holy Mountain.
Holy Mountain. That's it. Yes. I keep thinking Greaser's Palace. No, that's Robert Downey,
Yeah,
a prince. So, for anybody who's seen a Robert Downey movie, you will understand that because it always said, directed by Robert Downey, and then in parens, a prince.
Prince.
He put that in all his films. I don't know why.
That.
Maybe his son. Oh, every film. Putney Swope being my favorite.
Oh, yeah, for
Yeah.
everybody.
Yeah, if you get a chance to interview his son ever, Mr. Junior. Now,
I did a round table with Robert Downey, and because of the nature of that setup, there isn't enough time to delve into the past.
right, but okay.
Current
So let's go forward into the past. Jodorowsky there's a movie. Have you seen Jodorowsky's Dune?
I have seen Jodorowsky's. I have seen the documentary called Jodorowsky's Dune.
Okay, fine. Yeah,
Yes.
That's a good clarification.
Yes.
And anybody who's seen that knows just how psychedelic the artwork was intended to be, like the spaceships and all that. He had the story. It looks like he really was paying attention to it, but he also made an assumption, which was that in the late 60s, the production companies, and I think it already was attached to Dino De Laurentiis.
I'm not sure that De Laurentiis was in it.
It doesn't matter.
It's been several years since I saw it.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah. Okay.
But they had the option to pick it up when Jodorowsky dropped it, and they had it. By the time Jodorowsky dropped it, they had it. I don't. And the way that Jodorowsky tells it, it was, quote, turned over to David Lynch. And that's why it was that language of his that made me think that the De Laurentiis clan was really his daughter, I think. There was and Lynch, who was no less of an avant-garde director than Jodorowsky, Lynch had at least proved that he could come in on budget, play well with the big boys. He had already made The Elephant Man and had gotten nominations for that. And he delivered a script that I actually had in my hot little hands for the better part of an afternoon because I was working for a talent agency. And they had more than just the breakdown. They actually had scripts. And
let me jump in because before we get to the Lynch portion of it,
I'm just giving the history. I'm not.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
But what is known is that the Lynch version would have been about 7 hours. And 2001: A Space Odyssey hadn't happened yet, where they had an intermission in the middle, and they weren't doing things in, two portions that much. There were sequels, but not all of a sudden, tune in for part 2. Yeah. So the Lynch version was cut down. He filmed what would have been a 2-hour, 40-minute cut. They released 2 hours, 20 minutes, and later on added the other 20 minutes, but with no post-production of any kind whatsoever. So there were no blue within blue Fremen eyes. It sounds like something you do to your car. You feminize it. Putting blue all over your.
It's a scam. Don't accept the under feminizing. No.
Yeah, exactly. And you have to use the right spice. Uh,
Yeah.
and the Lynch film, he was dreadfully upset. He tried to have his name taken off. The Directors Guild of America has a name. What is that name?
Alan Smithy.
That's right.
I think they've now moved on to another name, but at that point it would have been Alan.
Yes,
Smithy.
because now everybody knows who Alan Smithy is.
Yes.
At the time, it was a deep, deep secret that if a film was directed by Alan Smithy, that meant it was disowned. So when Dune first came out, the Lynch version, it was directed by Judith Priest. That didn't last long on the print.
Yeah, I don't. At least on the print that I saw, I think I saw David Lynch's name there. I would have noticed that.
I was at the press preview, and it's Judas Priest. It may not have ever gone to anyone who actually paid to see the movie. And then after that, the Science Fiction Channel, I think they were still called, or maybe they were Sci-Fi, but it was SCI-FI.
Yes.
As opposed to Sci-Fi.
At that point, it was still Sci-Fi.
Okay. So it was the Sci-Fi Channel, as opposed to the Sci-Fi Channel, did a version which I remember so well, I can't tell you a damn thing about it.
Exactly.
I have no recollection. I'm not even interested in going to IMDb to find out. I think it was done by that father and son team, the Hollies.
Oh yes, yes. They did like Dragon. No, not Dragon Riders.
They did not Left Hand of Darkness. They did A Wizard of Earthsea. They did Riverworld,
Dragon World, whatever that thing was, the big art book. They adapted that.
Yeah, they did a lot.
Gulliver's Travels was one of theirs.
They actually did some good stuff.
Yeah,
it was shocking to see something with their name on it that was good, but it happened.
Yeah,
and they did the version for the Sci-Fi Channel, which was totally forgettable.
I saw one episode of it, and like you, I don't remember much of it, except that my impression of it was that it was dutiful. Not beautiful, dutiful.
Yeah. Now, then after that, they went the extra mile. The books by Frank Herbert, the original trilogy, and in the interview I did with him, and by the way, those interviews are still available at wbai.org in the archive under Hour of the Wolf. Herbert says that it was always intended to be a trilogy or a novel in 3 parts, a la Lord of the Rings, which Tolkien considered one novel with 3 books and 5 appendices. And Herbert was following that. He did a lot of appendices as well, a lot of which have a bunch of in-jokes in them. Like he's constantly quoting some philosopher named Ander Polson.
Okay.
Who you and I would call Paul Anderson.
God, I can't figure out what that name would actually be.
But at any rate, they did Children of Dune. Thankfully, they skipped Dune Messiah, which is a terrible book. I mean, let's face it, Herbert had some brilliant ideas, but he was not a very good writer.
It was diminishing returns as far as the novels were concerned.
Well, no, Children of Dune's pretty good.
Is it? I felt through it was kind of a steadily decreasing slope.
No, Dune Messiah is the worst book in, including whatever Brian J. Herbert and No, it's Brian Herbert, and I'm forgetting his co-author, which is terrible because I see him at conventions occasionally. A very nice man and a competent writer.
Mhm.
At any rate, the two of them have. Herbert wrote either 5 or 6 books in the series:
Mhm.
God Emperor of Dune, Nose Picker of Dune.
Nosepicker of
Yeah,
Dune,
yeah,
yeah.
that's my favorite.
The soiled cafeteria trays of Dune, yes.
Yeah, and but the worst of all the books is Dune Messiah, and
Mhm.
thankfully also the shortest. And but Children of Dune, by which time Paul, now we don't want to give too many spoilers, but suffice to say that Paul doesn't really appear in Children of Dune. If he
Mhm.
does, he's not human.
Yeah.
It's all about the Lady Jessica.
Yeah.
And the Lady Jessica was played in that by Susan Sarandon, which made,
Oh.
oh, all of a sudden Dan's eyebrows hit.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and an interesting choice, a very good actress.
and a good Lady Jessica.
Yeah.
And um and again, as you would say, I would use the word that you used. It was a dutiful one. It's a long story, a longer story than Dune itself. Dune is a mere 900 pages. But that includes the appendices. Children of Dune, the prose is actually longer. And then, that was the end of it because people, at least when they did the TV versions, they could stretch them out. I think Children of Dune was 6 hours and that Dune was 4.
Mm.
And but it became very apparent to people. David Lynch certainly knew this from the start. Jodorowsky knew this. If you're going to do Dune, you're going to need a minimum of 5 hours, and then you're doing the table of contents.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
along comes now. How do you pronounce it? I've always said Denis Villeneuve.
Uh, I think you are closer to it. I pronounced it as Denise
No, it's
Villeneuve.
Denis. It's Denis.
It's Denis. It's Denis Villeneuve.
Yeah, you might be right on the
Yeah.
second.
Yep.
Uh,
Well, yeah,
I,
I saw his appearance on Colbert, and he
I have to
confirmed
catch
with
that.
Colbert that
I'm sure it's on YouTube.
he
Was he
was. Yeah.
understandable? He's got a very heavy accent.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. He was perfectly
He's French.
fine.
He's French Canadian.
He was
Uh,
perfectly fine. Colbert was practically piddling himself, but
well, yeah,
uh,
Colbert's a fanboy.
yeah, he is
It's
straight up, straight up.
one of the best things about him.
Yeah.
And at any rate, Villeneuve, I have still not seen his first 2 movies, Sicario and the Sicario sequel.
Well, he's got more feature films than just Sicario and whatever other film. I think
But
he's
the,
done.
the point, though,
Yeah,
is
go
when
ahead.
he turned to science fiction,
Yeah.
he made Arrival. And Arrival
Yes.
is
Yes.
clearly one of the 5 best science fiction movies of this millennium.
No argument.
Uh, he took a Ted Chiang story called The Story of Your Life. It's not a long story, it's no more than a dozen pages, but it is very dense, it is very complex, it is fascinating, it's unfilmable. You cannot make a movie out of this story. Of course, you couldn't do one out of Shoeless
That's
Joe, which became not only became Field of Dreams, but is becoming a
Mhm.
TV series.
Okay. I'm not going to be watching that.
I'll be curious. Well, who knows? Because they don't stick with plots anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like Man in the High Castle had nothing to do
Yeah.
with Philip K. Dick.
Let's not get started on Man in the High Castle. I have words about that, but yeah. I get you. Yeah.
Yeah, I never watched the fourth season. I thought moments of the first season were good.
I gave up like 3 episodes into the first season. I have a real problem with the concept of the film as opposed to the
To
book.
the book, yeah. And yet, what could you do if you think about it?
Do it as a book because the film doesn't make any sense.
You can't show it.
Yes, yes,
So
as a book, as something that is written. In case people don't know, one of the
people
things
handing
about
out, yeah,
a
it's
big MacGuffin is in the actual novel Man in the High Castle is this is an alternate history where the Nazis and the Japanese won. There is a book going around that describes an alternate history,
that is
albeit,
ours.
of course, that is our actual real history. You can do that in a book because
But
you just need to write it. But a film, but
they
in
also
the series,
they
it's a
also
real
want,
of movie film.
because, and for a couple of good reasons. One of them being that they wanted to pull a Mia Farrow, which is to say, uh, people can step into that world.
Oh, I see.
Did
Yeah, I didn't follow it that far along,
Okay,
and
that's all.
that
That's season
that
2 out of 4.
yeah,
Uh,
that
and
that frankly makes it worse.
um, it didn't do much for me. I
Yeah,
never saw any of season 4, but that actually has to do with the end of season 3, which ended rather sharply for me, and I
yeah,
didn't return
yeah.
after that. And
In any case,
anybody who saw
let me steer you back to.
anybody saw season 3, that was a pun.
Oh, okay.
But okay, so Denis Villeneuve
Venue.
starts. Yeah, I have a friend by the name of Villanueva, which
I,
is the Spanish pronunciation,
yeah.
and he said in French it's Villeneuve.
Okay. Yeah,
But I don't.
I'm not arguing with. We were
But
talking about Arrival, though. That's
okay, we're talking about Arrival, and with the arrival of Arrival, we saw that here was somebody who took his science fiction seriously.
mhm.
Ted Chiang is not a big selling name. He's simply somebody who science fiction writers and readers devoutly wish they were him, because he's such a great writer. Um, and after that, Denis then made Blade Runner 2049, which is obviously very controversial. But
Yeah, yeah.
I
We
have to
can get
say,
into that a little bit too. Go
I
ahead.
have to say, and I think we had this conversation on the radio, I really loved it.
I was not so taken with it. I think the problem is that, as I said in my review that ran this morning, the interesting thing about Villeneuve is that he is a very deliberate filmmaker, a very precise filmmaker. It's sort of in the mold of Kubrick, but there
I will
is,
add to that Kubrick and Tarkovsky.
yeah, okay, him too, yeah. They're sort of joined at the hip anyway.
I would actually say they need a third hit, because I think that this guy is in the
This may
same
well,
class.
yeah. The distinction with Villeneuve, I feel, is that there is a humanistic passion to his work that doesn't always show up in Kubrick. Not so much.
Do you think that Kubrick is a sort of a cold director? That's what
Yeah,
everybody.
what would make you say that, dude? Uh,
I don't know.
but
The mannequins in his first film. Uh,
yeah, well, yes. But in any case, but what I feel, and I've sort of lost where I was going with my point. Um, the point is that, well, with the problem with Blade Runner 2049 was that he was deliberately putting it from the point of view of the replicants. and so there's a coldness and an unhumanness to it, and he kind of lost one of one of his secret sauces that makes him special, and that I think makes his work stand out.
And yet, the replicants there have um, desires, wishes. He's fairly much in love with, how do
Um,
you pronounce her name?
oh,
Ana de Armas.
yeah, yeah.
She,
I'm
re-
not going to try. Not
she
going to try.
recently made a film called No Time to Die,
Yeah,
and she was wonderful in Knives
yeah.
Out.
And that relationship was one of the more interesting aspects of the film. I think the other problem was, and I forget the lead actor who played Kay. Um,
Ryan Reynolds.
Ryan Reynolds. It was it Ryan. It wasn't Ryan Reynolds.
No, I'll have to
No,
go to
no, it was
IMDb.
definitely not Ryan
Somebody with
Reynolds.
a name like that. Okay. Hold
Yeah, yeah. Uh, but the problem was, he's handsome and he's got
Gosling? Ryan Gosling?
right. Yeah, I believe it's Ryan Gosling. Yeah,
Okay.
Ryan Gosling. Um, he's got the stature. He presents great. He was just kind of freaking cold. He didn't bring a thread of humanity in it, and
No, it's his actions that do.
I'm not sure you even see it in his actions. The
I
advantage to the original Blade Runner was the fact that no, nobody, and I'm not sure they even considered this, nobody was really sure whether Decker was a replicant or not. And when I'm saying nobody is sure, I'm talking about the people actually making the film.
and actually that was all, shall we say, retrofitted.
Yeah, yeah, it
They
was, and so
there is so much myth
yeah,
about that, and they say, "Oh, well, what proves that?" And the answer is Rutger Hauer's "Tears in the Rain" thing.
yeah,
What nobody bothers to point
yeah,
out is that that was ad-libbed.
yeah.
It was not
Yeah,
even in the script.
the plus side of that though was that since nobody was thinking about that, Bruce Willis was able to bring some humanity into his hard-boiled Blade Runner performance, and then as you say, it got retrofitted.
His performance is so thin, I didn't even see him, unless you mean Harrison Ford.
Oh, geez, did I say Bruce? Harrison Ford. I'm talking about two actors who just can't care anymore. So
Uh,
they
they phone in performances.
yeah, but yeah, it's Harrison Ford. My apologies. Yeah, Harrison Ford was able
Yeah.
to still do humanity when he was still doing humanity, and so. But because they understood, or they were playing it completely that Kay was a replicant.
Okay, well, we're spending too much time
Yes. Okay.
on
Let's
that
move
movie.
on. Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
But there was a comment from Patrick O'Leary, a fine writer, where he says, Kubrick and Tarkovsky, excellent comparison. I would kill to have him film my book. And
Well, that's going to be very hard. Oh, yeah, if he's talking about Villeneuve, then that's true. Yeah. If you're asking about Kubrick and Tarkovsky teaming up, that's going to be a little more difficult.
Whatever.
Yeah.
And in a way they did, but that's a whole other essay that I actually did on the air 3 weeks ago. At any rate, Denis took on Dune. And guess what? Like everybody else, he came up with a script that is, when complete, a minimum of 5 hours.
Yeah.
Very probably longer.
We can take that up hopefully later, because I have thoughts about that too.
Yeah, and the question is, just how far uh, they want to take it. Do they want to make a franchise from it? Which it all, as far as the books are concerned, they've already done that. I don't know how many Dune books there are in total, but there's quite a few.
Okay, can let me jump in here and say, and I mentioned this in an email to you, is that, and I am going on my own instincts here. I think, for one thing, we haven't heard yet that part two
Part two
uh,
hasn't even been.
has not been greenlit yet.
That is correct.
Okay,
And that's me, by the way. I wasn't paying attention. I did not notice in the opening credit, and there's only one credit,
it's
that it says in
little
teeny
teeny
little
tiny,
letters. It says
little teeny
part
tiny,
one.
part one. Interestingly, I'm a projectionist at a theater here in the beautiful city of Philadelphia. When we got in the digital prints last week, um, the prints are marked Dune Part One. So I had a little hint. This is what's going on. But of course, it's nowhere in the marketing material for obvious reasons. My feeling is though, and it depends on
It's
whether
been
the
doing well.
shekels come in. It's doing well. Whether it does well
It's
enough
doing well.
will determine whether what I think should be happening and what probably will be happening is that I don't think it's necessarily just a part two. I think this should be a trilogy.
Well, I think if you, in fact, take it merely as far as the first novel, Dune,
Mhm.
is concerned, yeah, I would
Yeah.
go along with the trilogy, except that they have jettisoned so much out of the book
Mhm.
that they've already streamlined it in many
Yeah.
ways.
Yeah.
I mean, what is a mentat?
That's true.
The
That's true.
word, the
There's
word never
not
appears.
nothing about that. I'm
For
going to
how
say
long?
navigators. Are they the navigators?
The mentats? No, the
No,
men.
no, no. The class, supposedly the one of the classes that are actually pulling the strings are the navigators or the
Well,
pilots.
there's the Navigators Guild.
Navigators Guild. That's what
Okay,
it is. Yeah.
okay. For people who haven't read the book or seen the movie, and this movie doesn't deal with it at all, although
Yes.
the Lynch film did, and I thought
Yeah.
did so very convincingly and very well. There are several stages when a person takes the spice. It causes changes, physical changes and mental changes. And stage one is that you get certain abilities. Stage two is you start turning into something other than human and have to live in this enclosed environment that is just filled with spice. And that's all that you can breathe is spice. Spice is what is mined on Tatooine or Arrakis or whatever.
Let's
Uh,
not drag Lucas into this.
no, Lucas.
Herbert should have sued anyway.
Come on. Herbert was probably.
Yeah, I'm flattered. Yeah,
And,
yeah,
and they show a worm skeleton in Star
yeah,
Wars.
yeah.
I mean, it's blatant. Uh,
Spice mines of Kessel bite me. So,
Indeed, at any rate,
yeah.
the
So, but
in
yeah,
3 parsecs. But,
yeah,
but the
the navigator. So, and I do think we actually do see a glimpse of a navigator. There's like one shot where aboard their ship where it seems like it's not like he's not in an enclosure.
they spend no time on the ship.
Yeah, yeah.
And now this is really, really important because a major part of Herbert's novel is how they navigate. By the stage three, by the way,
Hmm.
of taking the spices, you become a worm.
Hmm.
You become one of the sandworms. They are former humans.
Yeah.
Uh, Not all of them. I haven't read through the later books. I stopped with God Emperor of Dune because, as you said, diminishing returns. But again, I will point out, Children of Dune is better than you probably remember it. And I reread the trilogy as Herbert intended it to be done maybe 3 months ago. So I'm actually relatively fresh. The point is that the navigators, with their abilities, you take a ship, a shuttle, if you will, to the place where the navigators are. And what the navigators are capable of doing is folding space. You never actually move, you are in this environment.
The Wrinkle in Time.
And the Sci Fi Channel version spent too much time
Mm.
in that ship. The Lynch version was not too bad, and that's also where we first meet the shout out Mapes, who is
Mm.
Linda Hunt
Yeah.
in that version, and she was wonderful. And so all of that
Well,
is jettisoned. We don't
yeah.
have the journey. This
Nevertheless,
movie,
let me let me advance this to you. Is that think about what we have with part one, which, from what I can
well,
understand,
let's just mention the other things that were jettisoned. There's
well,
a lot.
well, let me go into why I think it should probably be a trilogy based on the structure of part one. Part one, from what I feel, takes place over the span of maybe a few weeks. Don't you think? It's not a
The
lot
way
of time.
the way he films, it's
Yeah.
rather timeless.
Well, let's hope it
I
becomes
well,
timeless. I do think
no,
it's
I mean
classic,
the
but
point is that he isn't paying attention to the time. He's
yeah,
in a dream world.
there is a point where I think Duncan says to Paul, "I'm going to Arrakis, and I will see," something like, "I'm going to Arrakis, and I will see you in 2 weeks." And then all the events that take place on Arrakis seem to take place in a matter of days.
Oh,
Now, so
I don't know.
let's
Maybe there's the Duke has to travel and see the whole thing. There's the whole incident with the spice crawler.
mm,
Uh,
I,
there's
I still think we're talking
there's a
maybe
war.
a matter of months.
Okay, uh,
Okay,
let me.
that's part one.
Okay,
Now we
let me-
get to part two.
Dan, my
Okay,
topic,
okay,
which I had set, was what is in the book that isn't in the movie.
hmm
Okay, and they jettisoned a great deal, which
hmm
helps streamline it. They've eliminated one of the most important characters of the book and of the first movie, and that's Feyd-Rautha, who is played unforgettably by Sting.
hmm
Now, I think I think he's jettisonable because you have both Feyd-Rautha and you have the Beast.
He's there, by the way. I believe that's Dave Bautista.
He's no,
He's referred to as nephew by.
there are two.
Are there two?
There are
Oh,
two.
oh, okay,
Okay, just reread it. Been
okay.
reading articles. He, he's the Beast Raban. Okay, which is another nephew of the Harkonnens. He's another
Okay.
member of the Harkonnen family who will figure in later. It is the main reason for Feyd-Rautha's existence in the book is because Herbert, to prove that the Harkonnens are more evil than the Atreides, who are really just different clans of the same Imperium, and are just as ruthless as the Harkonnens and all that. The To prove that he is evil, they have the Baron Harkonnen lusting after Sting. And all I have to say is those people that don't lust after Sting don't have a pulse, especially in the outfits they put him into for that movie.
So so long as he doesn't bring his loot with him, I'm fine.
Whatever. It's a loot remark.
I do.
Harris Durrani has a comment that I want to get to, which I haven't read, but I trust Harris Durrani. So he says, if I recall directly, the first novel does not feature a navigator, and there are few, if any, scenes on ships. Actually, maybe you do recall correctly or not, but I do believe that a lot of the training that Paul's getting from Gurney Halleck and all that does occur on board one of the shuttles. But that's neither here nor there. Where the events occur, they occur. Writing out a character that takes Herbert made the Baron evil by making him lust for his own nephew. And that's really what distinguished them. Herbert had, shall we say, certain social issues. He would not,
Okay.
he would not pass muster today.
Yes, he would not, but it was a different time, as they say.
He was a homophobe. His attitude towards, did you listen to the interview?
I've heard the first part of the interview. I haven't.
Okay. The second part is where Margot Adler comes in, and Herbert and Margot start talking the politics of Dune and how it relates to the Arabic world and all that. And a lot more about Herbert's sense of politics came through in that part of the interview. I can't speak for where he would be today because
we grow, we change.
Yeah, exactly. And Herbert did seem to me to be an affable fellow, and yeah, maybe he will have changed, but what's written in the book is still there, and it's politically problematic.
Which Villeneuve tamped down completely.
Absolutely. Thank goodness. Thank goodness. And so did Lynch. What Lynch did to make the Baron horrible was the whole vampiric thing where he had
I guess so. He sort of shuttled it sideways. It's still kind of there, but he sort of displaced it.
Yeah, with grosser stuff.
Yes.
Instead, what Denis did in his version is I thought he had a remarkably good Baron.
Yeah, and you pointed out that Skarsgård delivers a better performance than the actor from
Sir Kenneth.
Lynch. Yeah, and no argument there. It's more restrained, it's more refined, and it's more menacing. The Lynch's Baron was quite a bit more cartoonish.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's I would say his Baron is what actually for me throws Lynch's film over the top. I don't hate it the way most people do, but that Baron is unwatchable. But if you rewatch that movie, which has such a horrible reputation, you realize Lynch did some things rather well with it. There are some very, very good notes and some very good filmmaking. And by the way, Lynch's cast is vastly superior to the cast in this version.
I would say, by and large, I think the cast are evenly matched. I think McLaughlin, though, has it all over Chalamet
No,
as far.
I'm first of all, I'm not a Chalamet fan.
Yeah.
Secondly, McLaughlin aside, let's mention a couple people like Max von Sydow, Patrick Stewart. I don't have the list in front of me, but the cast. You do. Uh,
Yes, I do.
the
Let's
cast.
see some of the ones. Francesca Annis as
Uh,
Lady Jessica.
I thought she was better and more age appropriate. I thought this actress was fine, but I think that she did not look like Paul's mother.
Mm. Okay.
And I don't think
Uh,
that she had the command of a soon to be Reverend mother. She didn't
uh,
have that command to stare down the lead Bene Gesserit,
yeah,
and by the way, Sean Phillips, you know,
yeah, yeah.
uh,
The other thing I think we agree on is Zendaya is much better
than Sean Young.
than Sean Young
Yeah,
as Chani.
yeah. I know there. I'll go one that shocked me that I actually preferred Jason Momoa to Richard.
Here, checking his notes. Where is Jason?
And I'm not
Duncan, Idaho. Duncan, Idaho.
the name of the actor. Thank you.
No, that Jason Momoa plays Duncan, Idaho.
Yes, the name of the actor in the first film.
Oh, in the first film.
Yes, I'm comparing actors from one film to the other film.
Okay, okay. Richard Jordan.
Thank you, Richard Jordan. Probably best known for Logan's Run.
Yeah.
At any rate,
which in which he was actually better than the leads.
well, not saying much, but I like Michael York. But at any rate, the point is that there were a number of people in this film that were better than in the Lynch film. But you take a look at the cast from the Lynch film overall, and that is an A-list cast from beginning to end. Linda Hunt, the Shut Up Mapes, she's barely in this movie.
Yeah, not much participation,
and she isn't given enough time in the first film either, which is a shame because she's a great character and is played by Linda Hunt,
a great actress.
Yeah, so I'm not talking necessarily performances because Lynch was trying to make his stuff over the top, and Denis
overall,
yes, and Denis is looking instead for a dream state kind.
And this is why I think one of the here again the secret weapons of why this Dune is so successful is because he took 2.5 hours to tell half the story.
Because he was the first person allowed to.
Yeah, true that.
Every single person. And one of the reasons that I went through that, from Jodorowsky, who was forbidden from making it because he wanted to do 5 to 6 hours, to then David Lynch, whose script would have run 7 hours. Sci-Fi Channel was truncated to 4.
Let me point out one of the best analyses of the Lynch version, and I forget if it was in FNSF or Locus. It was in the genre magazine, definitely. But the critic said, look at it as Dune's greatest hits.
Yeah. Jim Capio, by the way, says, can't see the whole thing, that they should have cast Tilda Swinton as the Reverend Mother, and
but
she's perfect.
You know what? Kind of cliche.
Too close to the Ancient One, huh?
Yeah, kind of cliche.
Maybe so. Also,
I respect the suggestion.
Jim Capio also wanted Tilda for the 11th Doctor and the 12th
Yeah,
Doctor and the 13th
yeah, yeah.
Doctor and so on and so forth.
I can understand the impulse fully, but if they said Tilda Swinton is this, you go, well, yeah,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah. But hey, who knows? They've got a long distance to go
yeah,
and a lot of characters to meet. They're
yeah.
gender changing. I thought what they did now, well, Max von Sydow was, definitively at Kynes. I
Hmm.
thought that the woman who
Yeah.
played Liet Kynes in this, I thought that was a brilliant casting.
Present. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Uh,
And just a nod to the diversity of the cast, just overall, I thought was
yes, well,
again, a good one.
there was a diversity in the first film. It was us versus them. Dune is the ultimate messianic story.
Yeah.
White person saves brown people.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Which is why, at base, I mean, this was brilliant. I would say that in making comparisons, I would still think Arrival is Villeneuve's better film.
I'm sorry, but I totally agree.
Oh my God!
No, well, I think Arrival is a masterpiece.
Yes, it is. It
I'm
is.
I'm ready to watch it for a third
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
Uh,
Arrival is I try not to do this because I hate when people go, it's an instant classic, but I think Arrival deserves to be regarded as a classic. Um, and
uh,
I'm thinking Dune as well deserves to be regarded as a classic as well.
yeah, Barbara, who is audience wrangling, did not put in her own reply to Harris Durrani, which is, she says, if I recall correctly, and she just reread the book as well, the first novel does not feature a navigator, and there are few, if any, scenes on the ships, or the scenes are so generic that it's inconsequential where the scene occurs. I
Mhm.
think that latter part is correct. It's inconsequential
Okay.
where it occurs.
Okay.
But I mean, the scene with the navigator, oh, that's huge. That's huge. When they push in, oh, oh, that's Harris. Is that? Oh, I see. That was Harris who said that. Okay.
Okay. I
Yeah.
haven't read the novel for
But
something like 45 years, so
yeah,
I
well,
got to go with the flow on this.
well, considering that Denis is very faithful. He changes his material around. Arrival is nothing like the Ted Chiang story, except that somehow it is. It
Yeah,
tells the same story in a totally different manner.
it's well this is because when you're telling a story in a particular medium, you tailor the story to the medium you're telling it in. So
Yeah, but he
that is,
but he did it masterfully.
yes, yeah, and not everybody can do that.
He did that thing which so few people do properly, and that's he wrote an adaptation.
Mhm.
And he took something, a totally non-linear story, and he turns it into a circular story
Mhm.
in Arrival. And I don't want to say more than that
Yeah,
because
I was going to say something that would have tipped it, but
uh,
I shall maintain
yeah,
it.
that would be a reveal.
Yeah, yeah.
uh,
A spoiler.
no, I don't use that word anymore.
You don't.
No, I don't. Largely because of a conversation I had with Michael Bishop
Mm,
about one of Bishop's own books, uh, and uh, Brittle Innings, wonderful book,
mm,
re-released about 4 years ago or something. I just did another show with Michael, by the way, but um, what my there is a very very important thing, an essential thing that people don't find out until about page 80, and you really want to discuss it. You really want to discuss it. But as Michael said, to talk about that would be too much of a reveal.
Hmm.
And I thought about that, and the subtlety. A spoiler is she's a guy. That's the ultimate spoiler for a movie.
Yeah, okay, yeah, I know which movie you're talking about.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
which is a
That's
non-genre
that's
movie.
that's a David Letterman line. Yeah, but it's a spoiler.
Yeah.
Because once you know that, you don't need to see the film again
Mm,
necessarily. To see
yeah.
Forrest Whitaker's
Okay, so
performance, maybe
yeah.
fine. That's a spoiler. But if
Okay.
you're finding out something in the course of the story, that's a reveal.
I get the distinction. I get this distinction, and
And,
I
and, and
in context to the film that we're talking about, I can agree with that.
yeah, there's really no spoilers
And
in.
people are going crazy, going,
But,
what freaking film are they talking about?
well, we were at that point talking about Arrival.
Well, no, but when you said he's a guy, uh,
Oh, I think
yeah,
most people get that one,
mhm,
especially because it was coined by David Letterman and made into a meme.
yeah. So in any case, or going on,
So I think that if I had a problem with Denis' movie, it's that it runs too short. Uh,
you think it runs too short.
I do. I do. Remember,
Interesting.
hey, how many times have you sat through Solaris?
Um, Once actually.
Okay.
In a theater over at the old Astor Plaza.
And here's a better one.
Oh
Remember,
no, not Astor Plaza. The
uh,
one on Sixth Avenue that was at I think 55th Street. The Ziegfeld. The Ziegfeld.
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 It's no I. It's mischievous to put an I in
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
Um,
Ziegfeld. But yeah, I have seen Solaris once.
I don't recall the Ziegfeld ever being anything but a first run theater, with the exception of a rerun of 2001. Um,
Well, this if this was
I
first
think
run for Solaris for New York, the very first.
that was in the Metropolitan Museum.
Was it? Okay. Okay. So
It
in
was.
any case,
And then there's Stalker, which makes Solaris seem short. And talk about a dreamlike state.
right.
Both of those
Right.
movies. Those are long movies, and
Yeah. My feeling
also
was that this was like maybe 4 or 5 beats too long, and I can understand why they did it that way. In the novel, there is the there is the scene where Paul confronts Jessica and tells her about his premonitions,
right.
and that was sort of like the logical endpoint for the story. And in fact, his premonitions sort of serve as coming attractions for the latter half of the book. Okay, so that that would have been a logical point, except that dramatically, it's not really a great point to end the story. So I understand why they had to carry it past that confrontation. Um,
And also, they don't know where they're going. They don't. It hasn't been
yeah,
greenlit, so we don't know what Warner Brothers.
well, yeah,
eh, eh,
and by the way, the scene in the film is kind of tossed off.
yeah.
And
Although they make up for it when Paul says to his mother, "I know you're pregnant."
yeah, okay, yeah,
So
which is an earlier sequence. Yeah,
yeah, but the point is that the
yeah,
point is made.
yeah,
She knows she knows that isn't um, normal. She
yeah.
knows, and this
Yeah.
is after he has been affected by the spice,
Mhm.
and he doesn't make mention of it, but she's aware of it. She's been a Jesuit.
Yeah.
I figured out in my interview with Herbert when Margot came in, and Margot, of course, was a huge name, remains a huge name in neo-paganism.
Mm-hmm.
She said what most of us said, Bene Gesserit.
Mm-hmm.
And Herbert said, no, it's Jesuit. It's the female version of a Jesuit.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Margot said, well, I know a whole lot of Wiccans and mystical people who will be disappointed. And his answer to that was, well, a lot of the early Jesuits were pretty mystical
Mm-hmm.
and thought of in a similar manner. Uh, which again tells you a little something about Frank Herbert's thinking and how the cool left and the pagans and all of that are embracing it. And guess what? He's thinking within the Catholic Church,
Mm-hmm.
not the same thing as neo-paganism.
Yeah.
There, overall, I think it's. I would call this a very, very, very good film. I hope it earns lots of uh, official accolades
It
and
already has.
no official.
Oh, okay. As far as within the community itself is what you're
Oh,
saying.
I don't care if it's the People's Choice Awards. It hasn't won any awards.
Yeah.
It
Oh,
has.
I see. I see what you're saying. Sam Delaney was kind of ambivalent about it. You know, Sam Delaney has the right uh,
He
to be.
certainly does. He wrote possibly the best review of 2001: A Space
Yeah.
Odyssey that I've ever read. So he is a very, he doesn't think of himself as a critic, but he's a very astute one. And of course, he is a critic. He's as a writing teacher
Mm-hmm.
with Clarion and years of experience doing this kind of stuff. I pay a lot of attention to Chip, not to mention that he was the first person I worked for at WBAI. So, I'm. Do you see him ever?
Not in person. We are Facebook friends,
Okay,
but
yeah.
that's as
Well,
far
you,
as
you,
our
you've
back and forth goes.
you've had a pandemic, but you live in the same city.
Yes, yes.
Uh,
That's pretty much the situation here. Um, what I feel about it is my takeaway is that uh, if this wasn't the Dune that you imagined when you read the book, this is now the Dune that you will imagine.
well, that's always the case, isn't it?
Not always, not always,
Not
not
always,
certainly
but
not with.
usually. It's a very sad thing what happened to The Hobbit,
Mm,
and for that matter, to Lord of
yeah.
the Rings. Now, I love what Peter Jackson did with Lord of the Rings. I think that he was faithful. I think he did a lot, but he's missing two things that change the book for me totally. The one that isn't so important is where's Tom Bombadil? But you know what? Fine.
Yeah,
Somebody
not
Del
really missed.
let Del Toro. Oh, very missed. Very missed. Del Toro should go out and make a Tom Bombadil movie. Tom Bombadil is one of the most important characters on Middle
Mm,
Earth. The ring has no power over him. He's
mm.
more powerful than Sauron. He's the Captain Marvel, or if you like, one of the Eternals, and he is Eternal
But
uh, in
he
Lord of the
he
Rings.
he's a side story though. And as far as the actual trilogy is concerned,
Yeah, well, yes, except that Gandalf refers to him. Never mind.
okay,
Aside from that, I said that was the one that wasn't important.
yeah,
So let me name the one that was important. Sharky's End.
hmm,
For those who are not that familiar with Lord of the Rings, Sharky's End is the finale of the narrative portion of Lord of the Rings. It is when they are stalwart travelers get back to Hobbiton and discover that it is being run by
Uh-huh.
Saruman and Wormtongue,
Mhm.
and it's been renamed Sharky's End. Everybody's living under a dictatorship and stuff like that. Tolkien's uh, main goal in writing that, if he had any goal, and he really didn't, other than exploring myth and stuff like that, but a theme that he wanted to um, pursue was that technology is evil, that you have this beautiful agrarian place, and it is Saruman who brings, and I will defend that pronunciation, uh, it is Saruman who brings mechanism to Hobbiton to the point where it will take generations to return. And that is much of the point. They fought this war, and for what? To discover that the Shire is no longer what it was. This is something that Jackson totally lost.
Mm.
He could have done it in 10 minutes. Tolkien doesn't even spend that much text on it, but it's essential text. And I don't like it when, if somebody's just doing an adaptation, they're saying, okay, I'll put this in and take this out. That's one thing. Peter Jackson's editorial scissors are not to my liking. Uh,
For many people, but in different ways.
you're,
So
you're you're talking about movies that are too long. What was his King Kong? 4 hours?
King Kong, yeah, which Roger Ebert rightly dubbed too much of a good thing.
Uh,
Uh,
I don't think it was even that good a thing
yeah, I would agree with that too.
because that's when
Just clarify for me. I thought Sharky's End was a 1970s film with Burt Reynolds. Am I wrong there?
I don't know. I'm talking about
but it should be.
Tolkien,
Yeah.
and I'm talking about what people put in and take out of their movies. Um, there are similarities here and there that come across. Movie titles get replicated
Yeah.
all the time. I noticed there's a movie coming out that's got the name of yet another movie within its title. And I don't remember which, and it's irrelevant.
Halloween Kills.
It's irrelevant. That's the title. It's irrelevant.
Okay.
The point that I'm trying to make here. Getting back to Jackson, and this involves King Kong. Jackson, understandably, spent so many years making Lord of the Rings, but he had Del Toro writing the script for The Hobbit that Jackson was then going to direct, and Del Toro was going to be involved. But Jackson went and made The Lovely Bones or Lonely Bones, and then he made King Kong. And Del Toro has his own dance card and had to go and do other things. So when it came time that Jackson finally said, okay, we'll do The Hobbit, he puts Del Toro's name at the bottom of the thing. He takes, this is something he also does in Lord of the Rings, where he gets rid of, the Council of Elrond runs 3 minutes. In Tolkien, it runs 60 pages, not 60, 40 pages. And my audio production of it is just shy of 2 hours. And but what he does is he takes what happens. He doesn't leave anything out. He just puts it in a linear format. So where everybody is sitting around the council saying, first I did this and I did that, then the next person, Gandalf tells his adventures and Bilbo his adventures and so forth. What Jackson and crew did to Del Toro's script was they took this much more nuanced thing that Del Toro had written and they flattened it out and made it linear, which made it an incredibly boring and laborious thing, which one cannot say for Lord of the Rings. Whatever quibbles one has for Lord of the Rings, it's not boring. Best thing in The Hobbit is Colbert.
his 15 seconds of fame.
Yeah, exactly. So, hold on.
Where were we? So,
I'll say one last thing about Jackson. I'm really looking forward to his next movie,
which is
Get Back.
Okay, yeah, the documentary.
Yes, it's what there's a 3 minute.
I'm curious about it.
There's a 3 minute trailer on YouTube.
Yeah.
Watch that and decide.
Yeah. Paul McCartney wants a happy ending, so but it might be closer to reality than.
They have 59 hours of footage never before seen.
Yeah.
What I don't understand is we're talking about the Beatles. How could there be 59 hours of footage
and it hasn't
in a vault?
Yeah.
That seems.
These are strange things.
So at any
rate, we ever see The Day the Clown Cried? That's the. Let's not forget I mentioned it. Never mind.
Mentioned what?
The Day the Clown Cried.
Never mind.
Yes, never mind.
The thing that I think that Denis got the tone right. I think that most of my objections are quibbles.
Mm-hmm.
I would not say many people are saying masterpiece. I'm not. I'm saying very, very good. If you want to see whether he can make a masterpiece, watch Arrival.
Arrival is a masterpiece. I will go out on a limb and say that this is a masterpiece as well. This had me from the first second. I was concerned about it because of how I felt about Blade Runner 2049. And but playing in the back of my head was this is a more humanistic story than Blade Runner 2049 was.
Depends on how you interpret that movie. I liked it a lot more than you did.
Yeah.
And I think it's a better film than the one made by Ridley Scott.
Interesting.
Especially, by the way, in terms of does it relate to Philip K. Dick or not?
Yeah. By the way, which version? Which of the 37 which of the 37 final director's cuts is the
one that's called the final cut, which is the 5th version, to be precise. Which interestingly is the one that Ridley Scott did not work on. So, but it did jettison the horrible voiceover work, which is one of the worst things in Dune, is the voiceover work.
You're talking about the Lynchian
version?
The Lynchian version, yeah.
There is no voiceover in this version.
Here's my feeling is that, and I am talking from what I understood about the industry at the time. What I am thinking is that Lynch took this gig solely so that he could get the money to do his own project, which was Blue Velvet. at
I,
that point.
I don't think so. I think Lynch was very much into the psychedelia of Dune, just in the same way as Jodorowsky was. It was the avant garde thing of its day. You have to go to that moment. And if you remember a lot of it,
Mm-hmm.
then you weren't really there,
Yeah.
as George Carlin used to say. But I like the colors, man. I really like the colors. Uh,
but I don't think Lynch was necessarily as invested in the project. He may have dug the psychedelia, as you say, but I don't think he was as invested as Villeneuve
he,
was. And let me
yeah,
just
well,
point
he's
this out. I don't know if you noticed at the end during the interminable credit crawl, but at the very end, there is a thank you to Frank Herbert.
I noticed that. Yes,
Yes,
uh,
and
and,
that's usually where the
sure,
creative team
I'm sure that
is.
Frank would have returned the compliment.
Well, yeah, that's true too. But I think the point that it's there, even though Frank Herbert is way past caring now, is an indication that Villeneuve had from the get go a deep
Kevin
investment.
Kevin J. Anderson and Brian Herbert and the people who own the franchise, and it is a franchise. They do care. They care a
But
great deal. And talking about the future, you and I have been talking about, are they going to take the first book and make it 2 or 3 movies? I think that they may take the third movie and begin Children of Dune and
that would be interesting.
and
Yes.
then hand it over to another director. I think Villeneuve will have
Mhm.
been done
Yeah.
with it by that time, turn over the franchise to somebody else,
Yeah.
and let them continue that, which is, by the way, a more exciting story in insofar as more action,
Mhm.
more action. Uh,
With the exception, I think, of Michael Bay, the tradition with franchises is your director does the first two movies and then hands it off.
Maybe so, but I think that Villeneuve took this novel and wanted to make this novel, just
Yeah.
as he took the Ted Chiang short story and made that a story. He's doing adaptations in his own, and Blade Runner is an adaptation,
Mhm.
Blade Runner 2049, of something already established, which is, by the way, based on a book called Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep?
Mhm.
And
But has drifted rather far.
say again.
But has drifted rather far.
Blade Runner drifts rather
Mm.
far. Blade Runner has very, very little to do with Philip K. Dick.
Mhm.
The Villeneuve movie comes much closer to the to that first book than Ridley Scott's version. And I'm not going to go into a point by point thing because I've done it 1,000 times on the radio, but I've gotten a number of people to, as at least see my point, including the people who were just 13 years old when Blade Runner came out, and therefore believe that's the best science fiction film ever made. And there's something to be said when you're at a certain, the best for well, the best science fiction film ever made is obviously 2001, and I was 13 when it came out. But it is nevertheless, if I could be objective, I think it is still remains the best. Uh,
Well, once again, no argument here. I do think that this Dune uh, merits joining that pantheon.
I would say that it is the definitive version,
Yes.
and I pray that they let this auteur continue it up to the end of the first book or a little beyond. I also think that Warner Brothers, being Warner Brothers, is, going to then say, so, Zack Snyder, you're not doing anything right.
I don't think Warner Brothers is going to be working
And I don't think that they're ever going to work together
and
again,
anytime
as a matter of
soon.
fact.
And you know what? Not missing it.
Talk about overlong movies, by the
Yes,
way.
it is.
But yeah, not missing it. I cannot name the Zack Snyder project that I like.
Um, I will, and there are a couple I will, but you'll kill me for it. Is Watchmen?
I, you know, it wasn't a bad movie. I just
No.
didn't care for it.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough.
It it,
And
it
I
wasn't to my taste, which is not a knock on the movie.
I will say I have a fondness for 300, but because it is just so buttly crazy.
Yeah, and it's another bloodletting film.
Yeah,
You know how I
but
feel. I
yeah, well, yeah, that's true too.
let's put it
But
this
it's
way.
black blood. It's
I'm
black blood. It's
Yeah, well, I'm not watching the Squid Games either.
ah,
You know,
Squid Games. Is it all that? Yeah,
is it
it's
all
kind
that?
of it's gory. It's
It's
pretty
been
gory.
called by Mike Hale of the New York Times the goriest thing ever on television. And Mike
I,
Hale has seen a lot of stuff.
yeah,
So, or the goriest thing ever made for television. In other words, worse than Game of Thrones,
yeah.
which
I
is,
don't know. No, you know what? I don't agree with it. I
well,
don't agree with
not
it.
having watched Game of Thrones,
Yeah, not having watched Game of Thrones or Squid Games, you can't.
I can't make a qualified. I stopped. I watched the first 8 episodes of Game
Uh,
of Thrones. Um, Barbara has seen what is it? Red Wedding.
yeah,
Blood.
the red wedding. Yeah, the red wedding. I mean, just on the basis of the red wedding as well.
Uh, uh,
I will say this about Squid Games: not enough boobies or floppy wieners.
okay.
Yeah.
I understand the TV series Spartacus is made just for you in that case.
uh,
So we are.
we've gone way over.
Yes, we've gone way over. I would like to encourage. I haven't even used one of my favorite little toys here. This is your last call for giving us a comment or a chat. I have to apologize to a couple of people um, who I missed. It's got to do with the interface that I see. And I also want to show this crawl, um, which is that if you care to give a tip to me for producing these, because this is not a free thing. I'm using software that I have to pay for and stuff like that. And we need to do a third thing. Whoops, that didn't go away when I wanted it to. And that third thing is support WBAI. And you can do that by calling 212-209-2950. And hopefully by
You'll feel much better.
yeah, yeah. So you'll feel better, and it will be a a good thing. Thank you, Patrick O'Leary. Good to see you. It's been too long. Let us know when you're coming to New York so you can be on the show or do another New York review of science fiction readings. Uh, Patrick, do you have a new book out? If you could type that in. Uh,
I've obtained a ghostly glow.
okay.
I'm kind of ethereal.
One way or the other, if you find a book with Patrick O'Leary's name on it, read it, buy it. Short stories too. Good writer. Good writer. Uh, I
By
think,
the way, this is my actual skin tone.
yeah. So I think that this is a I would say very, very, very good movie. A masterpiece has no flaws. This has flaws.
I don't necessarily agree with that either. Everything has a flaw, which is fine. You know,
When
it's
you when you're discussing masterpieces, music, art, that's the best thing it can possibly be. You can't make an edit, you can't make a change, you can't do a casting change. That's a masterpiece.
I don't know. Maybe it's my standing as a critic that I can always, like find, the little thing. Whoa, the thread is dangling down here, and the point of it is that is it a flaw enough to alter your perception of the work of art, or is it something where you can say even with that, uh,
I would say
even
I would say here that I miss characters like the shout out Mapes.
mm,
I think omitting her um, is a big mistake. They don't omit her; they just sideline her.
mhm.
Uh,
I will throw in this is that I come from the standpoint of having read the book, and so having that background and the understanding of the story. And so somebody who comes in cold, will their perception be the same? Will their appreciation of it be the same? Because
no,
this,
because it is the shout out Mapes who tells Paul of the witching ways.
well,
Jessica,
well, I'm not
there are
just
things
talking
that
about.
Jessica holds back that she supplies, and those are not supplied in this story.
So yeah, there is that issue, and so I'm not sure if you're garden variety Star Wars fan or your MCU fan, if they're going to feel it is as satisfying an experience as I felt it was, even at half the story.
It was extremely satisfying. As I said, it was. I gave it three veries on the very good. I think it's certainly up there with the best science fiction cinema. Uh,
It deserves it.
and I want to.
Wow, I
Uh,
didn't know there were extras on.
I, yeah, oh yes, there are quite a few.
Yeah, yeah.
There are quite a few, eight or nine. What you have to do is you have to scroll down. It's the only reason. Now, here's the thing: both Dan and I, or rather, neither Dan and I saw the movie the way it's supposed to be seen. We saw it on HBO. This is something that probably wants to be seen on IMAX. Uh,
I will just say to that I have been weaned in the screening rooms of NYC, which whatever you would imagine are not always that optimal a
well,
way to watch a film,
the
and
new
so I've got a fairly large enough screen,
the new
and
the new Warner Brothers screening room in the Hudson Yards is almost as good as the Ziegfeld.
hmm,
Uh, Things have changed.
okay, it's been 6 years.
Yeah, it's
I
been
will
six
grant that.
years. It's
But
uh,
having been
but having been given a choice,
inculcated into
we
that, you develop the muscles to.
we had the choice of seeing it in that very screening room where we also saw Motherless Brooklyn,
Mhm.
and it's a good screen. It's a lovely place, but it would have been the Monday before the Thursday when it was previewing, and we're just not comfortable yet.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
Same here.
breathing the same air
Mhm,
in a delta environment.
mhm. I am
Last
beginning to
words.
shade more towards it being okay to go to theaters, but your point is valid. Is you should get to see it on the largest screen you can. If you're still feeling
And I will.
uncomfortable about going into a theater, get yourself to as big a video screen as you can and shut off all the freaking lights.
Yeah, yeah. And allow yourself only one break. Uh,
Yeah, you know what? I went all the way through and I wasn't really anticipating it, but once it started, I was in, I was invested.
yeah,
I did
same
not
here.
look
I
at the
was I
clock.
was I was glued to the whole
Yeah,
thing.
yeah,
And it's that kind of a movie. He's that kind of a movie maker.
yes.
My
And
the last
this
question,
is
and this
in
is
many,
simply a
I'm sorry.
mental exercise,
Yeah.
is I would love to hear from people via email. I am jfreund@hourwolf.com. What you think, and I want to hear this from you also, Dan, after some thought, after he is done with Dune, what do you think Villeneuve should be doing? And don't tell
Oh.
me Stranger in a Strange Land.
I'm not sure that's really his métier. Um, I'm not sure that's really in his ballpark, but
Yeah, and
interesting example.
I just thought of it.
Yeah,
I know what his next project should be. The
yeah.
Dispossessed.
Okay. I do not know the property, so
It's a novel by Ursula K. Le Guin.
yeah, yeah. Left Hand
Okay,
of
listen.
Darkness would be interesting too. Sorry.
Which one? I didn't hear you.
Left Hand of Darkness.
Yes, but much harder to make.
Yeah,
Also,
yeah. Granted.
The Dispossessed is more of a political book. Left
Mhm.
Hand of Darkness would be very timely because of its gender issues.
Yes. Yeah.
Either I'd be
And
satisfied with either.
and yeah, and Villeneuve could do it.
Yeah, I think he could. I
Yeah.
think he could. All righty, Dan. Thank you.
Thank you.
What are you doing for my Halloween episode?
The Halloween episode you are
I'm
getting
playing Shirley Jackson.
it's not going to be Halloween themed. I can guarantee you that it's going to be Labyrinth of Cinema, a very curious but very fascinating but very entrancing Japanese film.
Well, we'll see how it fits in. I have Shirley Jackson reading The Lottery.
Yeah. And by the way, let me just throw in while we're doing the plugs and all of that, that you can read my ongoing series, the SF Path to Higher Consciousness, over at tor.com. Now, if you go to tor.com and try to search me, you're probably going to have trouble because for some reason the search engine doesn't quite work that well. If you
We have to
do
wrap,
do a Google search on Tor and Dan Persons, I should come up like right up top.
as it were, or his articles will.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for the people who joined us, and thank you, Dan. And thank you, Barbara Krasnoff, for the audience wrangling. Our next New York Review of Science Fiction readings, which will be in a week from Tuesday, will be Nicole Glover. And the month after that will be Carlos Hernandez and Claire Cooney, and will be a lot of fun. Okay, hope to see you all there then. And again, thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful time. And if you're awake, tune in Hour of the Wolf Saturday at 7 a.m. or else check out the archive. You can still hear the interview with Frank Herbert, which is pretty rare. So I'm pretty proud of it. Okay. Good evening. Take care.